Welcome to the Listen and Sleep channel. Today we embark on a special journey. A journey not into the external world, but deep into ancient wisdom that lives quieter than words and deeper than thoughts. Make yourself comfortable. Allow your breathing to slow down. Let your body find its natural relaxation. We will immerse ourselves in the world of Hermeticism, not as a textbook, but as a quiet river of understanding where each wave carries within itself the reflection of stars. Imagine an ancient city on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, Alexandria, the 4th century after the birth of Christ. The sun sets beyond the horizon, painting marble columns in golden tones. The air is saturated with the aroma of the sea, spices from distant trading ships, and something else, the smell of old scrolls, wax, incense. This smell floats over the greatest library of the ancient world, where all knowledge that human consciousness could contain was gathered. You walk through marble corridors, and your footsteps echo in the silence. Around you are endless rows of scrolls. Papyrus rustles under the light breath of wind penetrating through tall windows. Here are stored texts of philosophers and mathematicians, astronomers and doctors. But among them are other scrolls, those written in a special language, not just with words, but with symbols, images, hints at what cannot be said directly. One of the library's keepers, an old man with gray hair and eyes the color of morning mist, carefully unrolls an ancient papyrus. His fingers, worn by time, move with special tenderness. He knows that before him is not just a text. This is a message from those who understood something important about the nature of the universe and the human soul, something they called Hermetic knowledge. This word comes from the name Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice greatest. But who is he, this mysterious Hermes? Was he a real person, or a symbol? Or perhaps asking such a question already leads us away from the truth? For the Hermetic tradition teaches, what matters is not who spoke, but what was said, and how these words resonate in your own soul. In the silence of the ancient library, understanding is born. Hermeticism is not just a philosophical school, and not a religion in the usual sense. It is a way of looking at the world, a way of seeing connections where others see separate phenomena, a way of understanding that everything in the universe speaks one language, the language of symbols, correspondences, hidden analogies. The old keeper closes his eyes and listens to the silence that lives between the lines of ancient texts. In this silence, there is something alive. It breathes. It speaks to those who know how to listen, not only with ears, but with the heart. And in this breathing silence is hidden the first lesson of Hermetic wisdom. Truth is not in words, but in the space between them. Not in answers, but in the quality of questions we ask. Candles in the library flicker, casting dancing shadows on the walls. These shadows also say something. They remind us that everything visible is only a reflection of the invisible, that behind every phenomenon stands something greater, that the world we perceive through our senses is only the surface of a deep ocean of reality. The wind calms. The last rays of sun disappear beyond the horizon. The library plunges into soft darkness, illuminated only by the dim light of oil lamps. In this darkness, the mystery is especially palpable. The mystery of knowledge that is transmitted not through lectures and textbooks, but through the touching of consciousness to consciousness, through silent understanding that arises when the soul is ready to accept what has always been nearby, but remained unnoticed. The Hermetic tradition holds within itself this mystery of transmission. It speaks of the fact that real knowledge cannot simply be learned. It must be lived, understood not by the mind, but by the entire being. And therefore, Hermetic texts are written so strangely, not like scientific treatises, but like poetic hints, like signposts for inner journey. In the silence of the library is born the first understanding of what it means to be a student of Hermetic wisdom. It means learning to read not only books, but life itself as a book, to see symbols in events, messages in coincidences, lessons in difficulties, in beauty, a reflection of the higher harmony that permeates all existence. The ancient city sleeps. The sea sounds behind the walls of the library, reminding of eternity. And in this sound of waves, something familiar is heard. The rhythm of breathing, the beating of the heart, the pulse of life itself that flows through all forms and phenomena. Hermeticism teaches to listen to this pulse, to tune into it, to understand that man is not a separate being thrown into an alien world, but a part of the unified organism of the universe. The old keeper extinguishes the last candle. The library plunges into complete darkness. But this darkness does not frighten. It is full of possibilities. In it, new understanding ripens. And when in the morning, the first ray of sun touches the ancient scrolls, they will speak again, not with words, but with light that lives in the spaces between letters. Thus begins the journey into the world of Hermetic wisdom, not with studying dogmas and rules, but with awakening a special quality of attention that knows how to see the unusual in the usual, the sacred in the everyday, the infinite in the finite. And in this awakening of attention is the first and perhaps most important step on the path that the ancients called the Great Work. The sea wind carries the smell of soil and seaweed. Somewhere in the distant part of the city, a rooster greets the dawn. A new day is born from the silence of night, as new understanding is born from the depth of silence. And in this birth of day from night is hidden one of the greatest secrets of Hermetic wisdom. Everything returns to its source to be renewed and begin again. Now imagine another time, another place, ancient Egypt, a temple in Heliopolis, the city of the sun. Here, among columns of pink granite, among hieroglyphs that seem like frozen music, was born one of the most amazing legends of humanity. The legend of the god Thoth, patron of wisdom, writing, all secret knowledge. Thoth was depicted with the head of an ibis, a bird that knows how to walk between water and land, between the visible and invisible. In his hands are a reed pen and a scribe's palette. He records the deeds of people, weighs their hearts on the scales of truth. But Thoth is not just a divine scribe. He is a mediator between worlds, one who knows the language of the gods and can translate it into the language of people. Priests in white linen garments walk through the temple, and their bare feet silently touch the cold stone floor. The air is thick with incense, with the aroma of lotus, with something else with antiquity itself, which lives and breathes here. In this air float prayers and incantations spoken thousands of years ago, and it seems they still sound, not for the ears, but for the soul. One of the priests stops before the statue of Thoth. He knows this god is not only Egyptian. When the Greeks came to Egypt with Alexander the Great, they recognized in Thoth their Hermes, god of roads and journeys, messenger of the gods, patron of merchants and thieves, sages and rogues. And in this recognition was born something new. Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice greatest. Thrice, because he was the greatest priest, the greatest philosopher, and the greatest king, or because he united in himself three traditions: Egyptian, Greek, and something else that cannot be named, but can be felt, something that lives above all traditions, and at the same time in the depth of each of them. The sun rises over the temple, and its rays, passing through tall windows, create patterns of light and shadow on the floor. In these patterns, the priest reads a message, not concrete, not literal, but symbolic. He understands light and shadow, day and night, life and death are not opposites, but partners in the cosmic dance. And Hermes Trismegistus is the one who knows the steps of this dance. In the silence of the morning temple is born understanding of who Hermes is in the Hermetic tradition. He is not a historical character and not a mythological deity. He is a principle, the principle of mediation between different levels of reality, between material and spiritual, between human and divine, between what we know and what we can know. Every person carries within themselves this inner Hermes, that part of consciousness that is capable of translating symbols into understanding, intuitions into words, dreams into reality. This is not the magical ability in the ordinary sense. This is a natural function of the soul, to be a bridge between worlds. The priest slowly walks around the temple, and his steps create a quiet rhythm on the stone floor. This rhythm reminds of heartbeat, breathing, the pulse of life that flows through all forms and phenomena. In the Hermetic tradition, this pulse is called the principle of vibration. everything moves, everything trembles, nothing rests. And Hermes is the one who knows how to tune into different frequencies of this cosmic vibration. The aroma of incense becomes thicker. The sun rises higher, and the temple fills with golden light. In this light, every particle of dust dances its own dance, but all dances come together in a unified symphony of movement. So too, in the Hermetic understanding of the world, every being, every phenomenon has its rhythm, its frequency, but all participate in the unified cosmic orchestra. The priest approaches the altar where an ancient papyrus lies. On it is a text he knows by heart, but reads each time as if for the first time. This is the Emerald Tablet, a brief text in which, they say, all Hermetic wisdom is contained. The words are simple, but behind each word lies an abyss of meaning. He reads the first line quietly, almost in a whisper. That which is below is like that which is above. And in these words is a whole universe of understanding. The law of correspondences, which speaks of the fact that the macrocosm is reflected in the microcosm, that by studying oneself, man studies the universe, that understanding laws acting in the small, he understands laws acting in the large. An ibis in the temple courtyard makes its characteristic cry. The priest smiles. Even birds participate in this morning service. In Hermetic understanding, there are no random events. Everything is connected to everything. The cry of a bird, the movement of a cloud, the fall of a leaf are all letters in the great book of nature that Hermes Trismegistus learned to read. And you too can learn to read this book. No special abilities or secret initiations are needed. Only attention is needed. Attention to what happens around you and within you. Attention to coincidences that may not be coincidences. To dreams that may be messages. To intuitive insights that come in moments of silence. The Hermetic tradition is not a set of dogmas to be learned. It is a way of life, a way of being open to the mystery that surrounds us everywhere, a way of understanding that the boundary between ordinary and miraculous exists only in our consciousness, and that by changing the way of seeing, we change what we see. The sun reaches its zenith. The temple is flooded with light, and in this light it seems the statue of Thoth has come alive. Its eyes look not into space, but into eternity. And in this gaze is an invitation to walk the same path that Hermes walked, not as a road with a predetermined destination, but as a living river that itself leads to where one needs to be. The whisper of wind in palms beyond the temple walls reminds that the wisdom of Hermes is not limited to one place or time. It lives everywhere where there is an open heart and an inquiring mind. In Greek academies and medieval monasteries, in alchemists' laboratories and modern scientists' offices, everywhere where man asks the question, what is reality really? Now we move to the very heart of Hermetic wisdom, to the 7 principles that are believed to govern all existence. But before speaking of them, we need to understand these are not laws in the legal sense. They are rather descriptions of how reality is arranged, a map of territory that each can explore independently. Imagine yourself in a quiet garden. Early morning. Dew has not yet dried on the grass, and each drop reflects a whole world within itself. You sit on a simple wooden bench under an old oak. Its leaves rustle in the light wind, and this rustling is like the whisper of ancient wisdom that knows more than it can express in words. Close your eyes and feel your breathing. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. In this simple rhythm is hidden the first Hermetic principle, the principle of mentalism. All is mind. The universe is mental. This does not mean the physical world is not real. It means that behind everything physical stands something more subtle. Thought, idea, design. Your breathing is not just a mechanical process of gas exchange. It is participation in cosmic breathing, in that rhythm with which the universe itself breathes. Each inhalation connects you with the planet's atmosphere. Each exhalation gives part of you to the common flow of life. And in this process, you are not a separate being, but part of the unified mind that thinks through all its parts. Open your eyes and look at the dewdrop on the leaf before you. In it is reflected the sky, clouds, tree branches, a whole world in one drop. This is an illustration of the second principle, the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As in the large, so in the small. This principle is not just a beautiful metaphor. It is a working tool of understanding. If you want to understand how the universe is arranged, study the structure of an atom. If you want to understand the laws of the cosmos, observe cycles in your own life. Ups and downs of mood, energy, creative activity. All this reflects larger rhythms. The wind strengthens, the oak leaves rustle louder. In this rustling is heard the third principle, the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Even the hardest stone consists of atoms that are in constant motion. Even the most stable thought is a flow of neural impulses. And you yourself are not a static construction, but a dynamic process. Every second, millions of cells in your body die and are born anew. Every minute, your thoughts and feelings change. You are a river, not a lake. And understanding this frees from attachment to any state as final. A cloud floats over the garden, covering the sun. Shadow falls on the earth. The air temperature slightly drops. Then the cloud moves on. The sun again illuminates the garden. In this simple change of light and shadow manifests the fourth principle, the principle of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its opposite. But opposites are not enemies, but partners. Light is defined through darkness, warmth through cold, joy through sorrow. They do not fight each other, but complement, creating fullness of experience. In your own life, you can observe this principle constantly. Periods of activity are replaced by periods of rest. Times of extroversion alternate with need for solitude. And instead of resisting these changes, Hermetic wisdom suggests dancing with them. In the distance, bird song is heard. Each bird sings its melody, but all melodies come together in a unified symphony of mourning. This is manifestation of the fifth principle, the principle of rhythm. Everything flows in and out. Everything has its tides and flows. Rhythm is not just repetition. It is the living pulsation of life. The heart beats not mechanically, but depending on what happens to the person. Seasons replace each other, not strictly according to calendar, but in living interaction with solar cycles, soil condition, bird migrations. And in your life, there are many rhythms. The rhythm of day and night, the rhythm of the week, the rhythm of seasons, the rhythm of life, stages. Understanding these rhythms helps not to fight with natural cycles, but to cooperate with them, to know when it is time to act and when it is time to wait. An ant crawls along the oak bark, carrying a piece of leaf much larger than itself. Its movement seems purposeful, meaningful. In it manifests the sixth principle, the principle of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. But this principle, in Hermetic understanding, is deeper than a mechanical chain of events. It speaks of the fact that nothing happens by chance. Behind every event stands many causes, visible and invisible, conscious and unconscious. And man is not a helpless victim of circumstances, but a participant in this complex play of causes and effects. Understanding this principle gives freedom. Freedom not from responsibility, but for responsibility. If everything is connected to everything, then each of your choices, each thought, each action influences the general picture of the world. You are not a separate island, but part of the continent of causality. The sun rises higher, and its rays, passing through the foliage, create on the earth a pattern of light and shadow that constantly changes. In this dance of light manifests the seventh principle, the principle of gender or generation. In everything, there are masculine and feminine principles. This principle is not about biological sex, but about creative forces of the universe. The masculine principle is activity, initiative, penetrating force. The feminine principle is receptivity, nourishment, forming force. And in every person, regardless of their biological sex, both principles are present. The oak under which you sit is the masculine principle, reaching toward the sky. The earth in which its roots are grounded is the feminine principle, giving nourishment and support. Your thoughts are the masculine principle, your feelings the feminine. And only in the union of these principles is born something new: understanding, creativity, wisdom. The seven principles are not separate laws, but facets of one crystal of truth. Each manifests through the others. Each complements the others. And together, they create a map of reality that helps navigate the complex world of inner and outer phenomena. The wind calms. The garden plunges into afternoon silence. In this silence, you can feel how all 7 principles work simultaneously. Mind manifests through matter. Polarities dance in rhythm. Causes give birth to effects. Masculine and feminine principles cooperate in the creation of new forms. And you yourself are a living embodiment of all these principles. You do not need to study them as external laws. You need simply to become more attentive to what is already happening in every moment of your life. And then the ancient wisdom of Hermes will become not theory, but living experience. We now move to one of the most amazing areas of the Hermetic tradition, to alchemy. But forget for a time the images of medieval eccentrics trying to turn lead into gold in smoky laboratories. True alchemy is the art of inner transformation, the art of turning ordinary human consciousness into something more subtle, wiser, more whole. Imagine an old laboratory, not that caricatured picture from horror films, but the real workplace of a medieval seeker of truth. High vaulted ceilings, stone walls lined with shelves of books and strange vessels. In the corner, a furnace where coal smolders, giving soft, warm glow. The air is saturated with aromas of herbs, metals, something indefinable, but not unpleasant. The owner of this laboratory is not a mad experimenter, but a wise man of middle age. His eyes are calm and attentive. His hands confidently handle instruments, but behind every movement is felt not mechanical habit, but awareness, almost prayerfulness. He knows his work is not with dead matter, but with living forces of nature. On the table before him stands a strange vessel, a retort. In it slowly heats some substance. The process has been going for several days, and the alchemist regularly observes the changes. But he looks not only at the contents of the retort, he looks into himself, because he knows the external process and internal process are one and the same. What happens to the substance in the vessel happens also to his own soul. Alchemy speaks of the great work, opus magnum. This is not one operation, but a whole path, a path that begins with nigredo, blackening, the stage of decay and death of old forms. In the retort, the substance blackens, decomposes, loses its former structure. In the alchemist's soul, the same thing happens. Destruction of illusions, liberation from false ideas about self and world. This stage can be painful. Everything a person believed in, relied upon, turns out to be unstable. But the alchemist knows this is not the end, but the beginning. Death of the old is a necessary condition for birth of the new. And he passes through this darkness not with fear, but with trust. Trust in a process that is older and wiser than his personal fears. Days pass. Gradually, the blackness in the retort begins to lighten. Comes the stage of albedo, whitening. Chaos begins to acquire new order. In the alchemist's soul, two changes occur. After a period of confusion comes clarity. Not final, not absolute, but sufficient to see the direction of further movement. Albedo is the stage of purification. As metal is purified from impurities in fire, so consciousness is purified from everything unnecessary, imposed, alien. Only what truly belongs to the person remains. Their true nature, their authentic aspirations, their deep wisdom. The alchemist understands he is not creating anything new. He is simply removing everything that prevents manifestation of what already exists. As a sculptor does not create a statue, but frees it from stone, removing everything unnecessary. Gold is already present in ore. One only needs to know how to extract it. The process continues. The whiteness in the retort gradually acquires a yellow tint, then reddish. Comes the final stage, rubedo, reddening. This is the moment of birth of the philosopher's stone, a substance that can turn base metals into gold. But the alchemist knows the true philosopher's stone is not in the retort, but in his own consciousness. This is a state of perfect harmony between all parts of human being, between mind and heart, between body and spirit, between personal desires and cosmic will. A person who has achieved this state truly can turn metals into gold, but not in the literal sense, they can see gold where others see only lead, see the divine in the ordinary, the sacred in the everyday. Fire in the furnace flickers, casting shadows on laboratory walls. These shadows dance like thoughts in the alchemist's mind. He knows the path of great work cannot be traveled once and for all. This is a spiral that rises higher and higher. Each turn passes through the same stages: nigredo, albedo, rubedo, but each time at a new level of understanding. Sometimes students ask him how much time is needed for the great work. He answers, a whole lifetime. And even that may not be enough, because alchemy is not a technique that can be mastered, but a way of life, a way of relating to each day as a laboratory, to each experience as an experiment, to each difficulty as another stage of purification. In the corner of the laboratory stands a large mirror. Not an ordinary mirror, but a polished metal plate that reflects not only external appearance, but the inner state of the one looking. The alchemist regularly looks into this mirror, not from vanity, but for self-checking. He knows external appearance reflects inner state, and if he sees in the mirror fatigue, irritation, anxiety, it means it is time to return to work on himself. The alchemical mirror shows not only what is, but what can be. In it, one can see one's true face, not that which formed under the influence of circumstances, but that which corresponds to inner nature. And this vision becomes the goal toward which the alchemist strives. Next to the mirror hangs an image of Ouroboros, a serpent biting its own tail. This is one of the main symbols of alchemy. It reminds that end and beginning are one and the same, that death and birth are parts of one process, that one who completes the great work returns to where they began, but as a different person. The alchemist closes his eyes and listens to the silence of the laboratory. In this silence sounds the music of the spheres, that harmony which governs the movement of planets and the rhythm of the human heart. He knows his work is not only personal. Each person passing the path of inner transformation contributes to the common work of consciousness evolution. Morning turns to day. Sunlight penetrates through laboratory windows, illuminating books, instruments, retorts. In this light, everything seems spiritualized. Each object has its soul, its meaning, its place in the great symphony of creation. And the alchemist is not master of this world, but its humble student, trying to understand and perform his part in this symphony. He takes in his hands an ancient book, a treatise on correspondences between metals and planets. Gold corresponds to the sun, silver to the moon, iron to Mars. But these are not just analogies. This is indication that man is a microcosm in which all forces of the macrocosm are reflected. And working with metals, the alchemist works with corresponding forces in himself. Solar gold is willpower, creative fire, capacity for leadership. Lunar silver is intuition, receptivity, connection with the subconscious. Martial iron is energy of action, ability to overcome obstacles, and so on. The great work is a process of harmonizing all these forces into a unified whole. Day declines toward evening. The alchemist extinguishes fire in the furnace, carefully tidies instruments, records observations in a thick notebook. His work never ends completely. Each day brings new discoveries, new questions, new opportunities for growth. He leaves the laboratory and heads to a small garden at the house. Here grow herbs that he uses in his work, but not only for chemical experiments. Each plant is a teacher from whom one can learn patience, endurance, the ability to grow in any conditions. Roses teach beauty and the ability to bloom despite thorns. Lavender teaches calm and the ability to calm others. Rosemary teaches memory and faithfulness. Mint teaches freshness of perception. Each plant carries within itself a message for one who knows how to listen. The alchemist sits on a simple bench among plants and immerses in meditation, not in complex technique, but in simple presence. He simply is here and now, open to what happens around and within him. And in this simple presence is the quintessence of all alchemical work. Because true gold is not metal and not achievement. It is a quality of consciousness, quality of complete openness to life, acceptance of what is, and wise participation in what becomes. And this gold is sufficient in every person. One only needs to learn to find it and purify it stars appear in the sky one by one. The alchemist looks at them and sees not distant luminaries, but nearest neighbors. Because stars exist also within him, centers of light and energy that can shine as brightly as their cosmic brothers. And the task of alchemy is to kindle these inner stars, to transform man into a luminous being, capable of illuminating the path for others. Now we rise even higher, to the stars, but not to those stars that shine in the night sky, but to stars that live within every person. Hermetic astrology is not predicting the future by planetary positions. It is the science of correspondences between cosmic rhythms and rhythms of the human soul. Imagine yourself on the flat roof of an ancient observatory. Night. The air is transparent and clean. There is no city lighting that hides stars from modern man. The Milky Way stretches across the entire sky like a luminous river. Each star is visible distinctly. Each constellation tells its story. Beside you stands a wise astrologer. His hair is silvery, like moonlight, eyes deep as wells reflecting stars. He does not look through a telescope. Such instruments are not yet invented. He looks with naked eye, but sees what is inaccessible to modern astronomers with their powerful instruments. He sees living connections between heaven and earth. The astrologer points to the constellation of the Great Bear. These 7 stars many peoples saw as a wagon, as a ladle, as a plow. But for him, these are 7 sages, 7 principles that govern the manifestation of spirit in matter. Each star of this constellation corresponds to one of the 7 classical celestial bodies: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. He speaks in a quiet voice, and his words mix with the whisper of night wind. Look, each planet is not just a celestial body. This is a living force, a principle that acts both in the cosmos and in man. The sun in the sky and the soul in your heart are one and the same energy, manifesting at different levels. You feel warmth emanating from the heart area, though the night is cool. This is response to the astrologer's words. The solar principle in you is not just a metaphor. This is real force, will to life, creative energy, ability to be a center around which personality organizes. When this force is strong and harmonious, a person radiates light and warmth like a real sun. The astrologer turns to the moon, which hangs in the sky as a silver crescent. And the moon is the principle of reflection, receptivity, connection with the invisible world. In your body, it corresponds to everything connected with cycles, rhythms, intuition. Women especially feel lunar rhythms, but they act in men too. You notice how your inner state changes depending on lunar phases. In new moon, you want solitude, contemplation, planning. In full moon energy bubbles, emotions sharpen, dreams become brighter. This is not superstition, but real influence of the lunar principle on the psychic sphere. A bright star low above the horizon attracts attention. Venus, says the astrologer, principle of harmony, beauty, love. In man, this is not only romantic feelings, but also ability to see beauty, create beauty, find balance between opposites. You remember moments when beauty of nature or art touched your heart so deeply that breath stopped. This is the Venusian principle in action. Ability to resonate with harmony that permeates creation, and ability to create this harmony oneself in relationships, in creativity, in daily life. Near Venus flickers a reddish point, Mars. Principle of action, continues the astrologer. Not aggression, as often thought, but directed energy. Ability to overcome obstacles, protect what is dear, go toward goals despite difficulties. In your body lives this Martian force, in muscles, in immune system, in ability to say no to what harms and yes to what creates. When this force is in balance, a person is active without aggression, decisive without harshness. The astrologer points to the brightest of visible planets, Jupiter, principle of expansion, growth, wisdom. In man, this is striving for knowledge, for understanding life's meaning, for justice. A Jupiterian person is not only one who knows much, but one who can share knowledge, help others grow. You feel how in response to these words, a wave of gratitude rises in your chest for opportunity to learn, for meetings with wise people, for moments of understanding that come as gifts. This is the Jupiterian principle, joy of cognition and generosity in transmitting the cognized. A dim point in another part of sky, Saturn. Principle of structure, limitation, patience, explains the astrologer. Not punishment, as many think, but wise limitation that helps growth. As a gardener prunes a plant so it grows stronger, so the Saturnian principle creates frameworks within which mastery develops. You remember difficult periods in your life when it seemed all doors were locked. But precisely in these periods, you learned what cannot be learned in easy times: patience, persistence, ability to find strength in the depths of oneself. These are Saturn's gifts. A teacher who seems strict, but is actually wise and just. A quickly moving point near the horizon, Mercury. Principle of connection, communication, mobility of mind, continues the astrologer. In man, this is ability to learn, adapt, find common language with different people, translate some ideas into others. Mercurial energy in you is curiosity that makes you ask questions, ability to see connections between things that seem unconnected, skill in expressing thoughts with words. This is mediator between different parts of your personality and between you and external world. The astrologer slowly turns, embracing the entire sky with his gaze. All these principles live in every person. Someone has stronger solar principle, someone lunar. One has Mars brightly expressed, another Venus. But the task is not to strengthen one principle at the expense of others. The task is to find their harmonious combination. You understand, Hermetic astrology does not divide people into types, does not predict inevitable fate. It offers a map of the inner world, helps understand which forces in you are strong, which weak, which need development, which harmonization. The wind calms, the sky seems closer, stars brighter. The astrologer places his hand on your shoulder. The most important thing to understand: you are not a victim of planetary influences. You are their co-creator. Planets in the sky indicate directions of energies, but how you use them depends only on you. This thought liberates from astrological fatalism. If you have bad aspects in your horoscope, this is not a sentence. This is indication of areas where more consciousness is needed, more work on yourself. Any energy can be used constructively or destructively. Even the most evil Mars can become a source of heroism, and the most good Jupiter can cause self-satisfaction. The astrologer takes from the folds of his clothing a small astronomical instrument, an astrolabe. This is a complex device of concentric circles covered with symbols and numbers, but he uses it not for calculations, but for meditation. Turning the circles, he tunes into different planetary energies. You too can learn this, he says. No astrolabe is needed. Only attention to what happens within you is needed. In the morning, when the sun rises, feel solar energy in your heart. In the evening, when Venus appears, open your capacity for beauty and harmony. This is not a complex esoteric practice, but simple expansion of ordinary attention. As people learn to notice change of seasons, weather changes, lunar phases, so one can learn to notice planetary rhythms in oneself. And this knowledge will help live more harmoniously, using natural cycles of energy. The first signs of dawn appear in the east. Stars begin to fade, but the astrologer is in no hurry to leave the roof. Dawn is the most important time for an astrologer, he says. This is the moment when day consciousness meets night consciousness, when visible connects with invisible. In this transitional time, it is especially clearly felt that boundaries between inner and outer, between sky and earth, between man and cosmos are conditional. Everything flows into everything. Planetary energies flow through human consciousness, and human thoughts and feelings influence cosmic rhythms. The sun appears on the horizon, and the last stars disappear in its light. But the astrologer knows they have not disappeared. They have simply become invisible. So, too, planetary influences do not cease during the day. They continue to act, but at another level of consciousness. Descending from the roof, you carry within yourself new understanding. You are not an isolated being on a small planet in boundless cosmos. You are a living point of intersection of cosmic forces, a place where star energies meet. And your task is to learn to be a worthy conductor of these energies, so that through you, heaven can touch earth. Now we enter a special world, the world of symbols. But not those symbols used in mathematics or road signs. We speak of symbols that speak directly to the soul, bypassing logical mind, of signs that carry whole universes of meaning and open their secrets only to one who knows how to look, not superficially, but deeply. Imagine yourself in an ancient workshop. Here works a stone carver, a man who creates not just ornaments, but sacred images. His hands are covered with fine stone dust, but movements are precise and confident. Before him lies a piece of dark green jade, and he slowly, carefully carves on it a sign that is as old as the world. A circle, a simple geometric figure, but the carver knows. In this circle is contained the mystery of perfection. A circle has no beginning and end. In it, each point is equidistant from center. It symbolizes unity, wholeness, infinity. When a person contemplates a circle, something in the depth of their soul responds to this perfect form. The carver adds a point inside the circle, the center. Now the symbol speaks of consciousness that knows itself, of soul that has found its center, of God who is present in the center of all existence. This simple sign has been used for thousands of years in different cultures, and each time it awakened the same deep experiences. Nearby on the table lie other blanks. On one, he carves a triangle, symbol of directed movement, striving upward, trinity that permeates creation. Father, mother, child, past, present, future, body, soul, spirit. Triangle directed upward speaks of spirit's ascension, directed downward of spirit's descent into matter. On the next blank slowly appears a square, symbol of material world. 4 elements, 4 directions, stability of earthly existence. Square speaks of the fact that spiritual must be embodied in concrete forms, that heavenly needs earthly for its manifestation. But the most complex symbol the carver saves for last. This is a 6-pointed star, 2 triangles superimposed on each other, one directed up, other down. This is sign of union of opposites, harmony between spirit and matter, masculine and feminine principles, ascension and descension. The carver sets aside tools and carefully examines created symbols. He knows each of them is alive. They are not just images, but windows into other dimensions of consciousness. When a person looks long at a symbol, meditates on it, the symbol begins to work. It awakens corresponding energies in psyche, tunes consciousness to a certain frequency. In the corner of the workshop hangs a large drawing, image of a serpent biting its own tail. Ouroboros. This symbol is especially dear to the carver because in it is contained one of the most important truths of Hermetic tradition. End is beginning. What seems completion is actually a new start. Ouroboros speaks of cyclical nature of time, of the fact that everything in nature moves in spirals. Seasons, lunar phases, human life, development of civilizations. All these are cycles within cycles, and understanding this cyclicality liberates from fear of death, from despair in difficult times, from attachment to temporary successes. The carver lights an oil lamp. In its flickering light, symbols on stones seem alive. Shadows move, forms breathe. This is not play of imagination. Symbols really are alive. They live in that dimension of reality that ancients called world of archetypes, world of primordial forms. Each symbol is an archetype, primary form, that exists in collective unconscious of humanity. Therefore, same symbols appear in different cultures independently of each other. Cross, circle, spiral, tree of life. These images speak universal language of soul. A student enters the workshop. He is young. Eyes burn with curiosity, but in them is also reverence. The carver nods to him and points to ready symbols. Choose the one that most attracts your attention, says the master. The student long examines stone plates. His gaze stops on circle, with point in center. This one, he says quietly. The carver smiles. He knows choice of symbol is not accidental. Student's soul itself knows what it needs for development at given moment. Take it in your hands, says Master. Feel its weight, its temperature, its texture. Symbol must become part of you, not only in mind, but in body. Student takes stone. Jade is cool and smooth, under fingers feel barely noticeable irregularities of carving. Now, close your eyes, continues Carver, and simply look at symbol with inner vision. Do not think about its meaning. Do not analyze. Just allow it to be in your consciousness. Student follows instructions. First, chaos of thoughts in mind, but gradually they calm, and only image of circle with central point remains. Minutes flow unnoticed. In workshop silence, broken only by crackling of wick in lamp, student immerses deeper into contemplation, and gradually symbol begins to open its layers. First comes feeling of peace. Circle creates sense of protection, enclosed space. Then feeling of centeredness. Point in center becomes point of support, place from which one can observe everything happening on periphery of consciousness. The carver watches student and sees how his face changes. Tension leaves, features smooth. Breathing becomes deeper and more even. These are signs that symbol works, tunes psyche to harmonious vibrations. Symbol is seed, quietly says Master, not disturbing meditative state of student. Planted in prepared soil of consciousness, it sprouts with understanding. But each will have their own understanding, because each soul is unique. Student slowly opens eyes. In them, new quality, depth that was not there before. I saw myself as center of my world, he says thoughtfully. Not egoistic center, but point of peace from which one can love and help others. Carver nods. Symbol opened in of its facets to student. But this is only beginning. With each meditation, with each return to symbol, new layers of meaning will open, because symbols are inexhaustible. In them is laid wisdom of millennia of human experience. On workshop wall hangs image of tree with spreading crown and powerful roots. Tree of life, one of most universal symbols. Roots go into earth. This is connection with ancestors, with unconscious, with nourishing forces of nature. Trunk is present moment, place where earth and sky meet. Crown reaches toward stars. These are aspirations, dreams, spiritual goals. Student approaches this image. Each person is tree of life, explains Carver. Important not to forget either roots or crown. If you break away from roots, you lose nourishment and strength. If you do not reach toward light, you stop developing. Night passes in studying symbols. Each tells its story. Each opens its facet of truth. Spiral speaks of development that goes not in straight line, but in ascending spirals. Yin-yang shows dance of opposites that do not fight, but complement each other. Ankh, Egyptian symbol of life, reminds that real life lasts longer than physical existence. By morning, student understands. Symbols are not decorations and not superstitions. This is technology of working with consciousness, way of tuning to higher frequencies of reality. Each symbol is key opening certain doors in psyche. And mastering this language of symbols makes person citizen of larger world where material and spiritual speak same language. Carver gives student small stone with carved circle. Carry it with you, he says. From time to time, take it out and look. Let symbol work with you constantly, not only during special meditations. Student hides stone near heart. He feels new chapter begins in his life. Symbols accompany us everywhere, but we often do not notice them. In architecture of temples and houses, in ornaments on clothing, in company logos, in dreams, in random patterns of clouds or cracks on asphalt. Hermetic tradition teaches to read this book of symbols, understand messages that life itself sends us. And gradually, world begins to speak, not with words, but with images, not logically, but poetically. And one who has learned this language never feels lonely, because whole world becomes living book that tells about meaning, about purpose, about path home to oneself. We now move to one of most elevated areas of Hermetic practice, to Theurgy. This word may seem complex, but behind it hides very simple and natural human need for living communication with forces greater than us. Theurgy is not magic in popular understanding, not attempt to subjugate supernatural forces. This is art of cooperation with cosmic energies. Imagine yourself in temple on mountaintop. This is not luxurious building with gold and marble, but simple structure of local stone. But in its simplicity is special beauty, beauty of correspondence to place, time, purpose. Temple is built so that rising sun illuminates altar, and in full moon, moonlight penetrates through special window in roof. Priest prepares for morning ritual. His movements are slow and conscious. Each gesture has meaning. Each action is part of larger whole. He does not hurry because he knows. Haste destroys subtle energies with which he works. Theurgy requires special state of consciousness, state of openness, reverence, inner silence. Priest lights incense. Smoke rises in straight column in motionless air, then slowly disperses under temple vaults. In this smoke is something symbolic. It connects earth and sky, material and spiritual. Aroma of herbs tunes consciousness to special frequency, helps distract from everyday concerns, and open to higher influences. On altar stand, simple objects: cup with pure water, lit candle, small stones collected in sacred places, dried herbs. Each object represents one of 4 elements. Water is element of feelings, emotions, fluidity. Fire is element of will, transformation, spiritual aspiration. Earth is element of stability, nourishment, material embodiment. Air is element of thought, communication, connection. Priest knows these elements live not only in nature, but in man. Water element manifests in ability to feel, empathize, adapt. Fire element in enthusiasm, decisiveness, creative energy. Earth element in practicality, reliability, ability to complete tasks. Air element in curiosity, sociability, flexibility of thinking. Purpose of theurgical ritual is to bring all these elements into harmony, both within oneself and in temple space, and in connection with cosmic forces. This is not mechanical action, but living creativity, where each moment is unique, where there are no frozen formulas, but principles that each time are embodied anew. Priest raises hands to east, from where sun will soon rise. His palms are open like antennas tuned to receive cosmic energies. He does not ask and does not demand. He invites forces of light to enter temple space, sanctify upcoming ritual, bless all who need help and healing. In this gesture is nothing superstitious. Priest knows universe is full of various energies, and man can learn to tune to those that promote growth, healing, harmony. As radio receiver tunes to different stations, so consciousness can tune to different frequencies of cosmic influences. First ray of sun touches mountain peak. Priest feels how energetics of space changes. Something living and bright enters temple, not as external force, but as response to inner openness. Theurgy is always dialogue, interaction, cooperation between human and divine. Priest takes cup with water and slowly walks around altar, sprinkling space. Water is sanctified not by magical incantations, but by quality of consciousness of one who uses it. Each drop carries intention of purification, harmonization, blessing, and space really changes, becomes brighter, more alive, more healing. This is not self-deception and not imagination. Human consciousness possesses real ability to influence subtle energies of space. Modern science only begins to understand this, studying influence of intention on quantum processes. But the Theurgists knew this millennia ago and developed whole systems of working with this ability. People enter temple. Few, 2, 3. They come not as spectators at performance, but as participants in common action. Each carries their problems, their pains, their hopes, and the Theurgical ritual becomes space where all this can be transformed. Priest does not preach, does not teach. He simply creates conditions so each can touch source of healing and wisdom that exists in every person. Theurgy is not imposing external forces, but awakening inner possibilities. Ritual participants sit in circle. Priest lights candles, one for each present. In light of these candles, faces become softer, eyes deeper. Ordinary human masks fall away. Something more authentic, brighter, manifests. Priest begins quiet singing. Not words, but sounds. Long, drawn out, resonating in chest. These sounds have no concrete meaning, but they tune, group to unified frequency, create field of common experience. One by one, those present join singing. Harmony of voices arises that is greater than sum of separate parts. In this harmony, something amazing happens. Boundaries between separate people blur. Feeling of unity, connectedness, mutual support arises. Each remains themselves, but at same time becomes part of something greater. This is goal of Theurgy, to create bridge between individual and universal. Singing quiets. In temple is ringing silence that seems alive. In this silence, each can hear what they personally need. Someone receives answer to long, tormenting question. Someone feels relief from heavy experiences. Someone simply fills with peace and gratitude. Priest knows he is not creator of these miracles. He is only conductor, channel through which forces of healing and transformation can flow. His task is to be as pure and transparent channel as possible, not mix personal desires and ambitions with these forces. Ritual approaches end. Participants, one by one, approach altar. Each leaves something: flower, stone, written prayer or request. And each takes something: handful of consecrated water, small candle, priest's blessing. This is symbolic exchange that shows principle of Theurgy. Give to receive, open to be filled. Sun rises over mountain. Morning ritual is completed, but its influence will continue. Each participant will carry part of that light and peace that were called into temple. And this light will influence their affairs, relationships, thoughts, gradually transforming their life. Priest remains in temple alone. He extinguishes candles, clears altar, but is in no hurry to leave. He knows each ritual is seed that must sprout not only in participants' lives, but in common field of human consciousness. Each sincere appeal to higher strengthens connection between heaven and earth for all humanity. Theurgy requires no special abilities or initiations. It is accessible to everyone ready to open their heart to forces of good, beauty, truth. This can be simple prayer at dawn, gratitude to stars before sleep, moment of silence amid nature, sincere request for help for another person. Main thing in Theurgy is quality of consciousness, not technique, not words, not actions themselves, but inner state with which they are performed, state of humility, openness, love. And then simplest actions become sacred, and most ordinary moments of life become opportunities for communion with divine. Birds sing in bushes around temple. Wind rustles in leaves. Clouds slowly float across sky. All nature participates in this continuous theurgical action, in this constant dialogue between earth and sky. And man is called to become conscious participant in this dialogue, voice of earth addressed to stars, and voice of stars sounding on earth. We now approach very heart of Hermetic path, to Gnosis. This word too may seem complex, but it means very simple thing, direct knowledge. Knowledge that comes not through books and not through others' stories, but through immediate experience of soul. Knowledge that cannot be learned, but can be attained, that cannot be transmitted in words, but can be awakened in another. Imagine yourself in cave on mountainside. This is place where for centuries came seekers of truth for secluded contemplation. Cave walls are polished by thousands of hands that sought support in darkness. Air holds memory of prayers and meditations of countless generations of mystics. You sit in pose that allows being motionless long time, but does not cause tension. Back straight, but not rigid. Hands rest on knees, eyes closed. Breathing are calm, natural. You do not try to achieve anything, understand anything, change anything. You simply are. At first, ordinary thoughts swarm in mind. Plans for tomorrow, memories of yesterday, worries, hopes, conversation fragments, melodies. This is normal. Mind is accustomed to being active, and it cannot stop immediately. But you do not fight with thoughts. You simply observe them like clouds in sky. Thoughts come and go. You notice that you are not these thoughts. You are one who observes them. And this discovery is amazing. All life you identified yourself with content of your mind, and now discover there is something deeper than thoughts, some space of awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear. Time in cave flows differently. Minutes can seem like hours, and hours like moments. You stop tracking time only present moment remains, which is always new, and at same time always same. Eternal now, in which everything happens, but which itself is unchanging. Gradually, mind calms, thoughts become rarer, quieter, and in gaps between thoughts, you begin to feel something amazing. Silence that is not empty, but full. Peace that is not static, but dynamic. Presence that cannot be described in words, but can be directly experienced. This silence is not absence of sound. Sounds exist. Somewhere far wind sounds, water drips, birds call to each other. But all these sounds happen in field of silence that includes them, but remains unshakable. And you understand this silence is your true nature, not personality with all its characteristics, but pure awareness. In this awareness, there is no I and not I, no subject and object. There is simply awareness, which is simultaneously empty and full, impersonal and intimate, infinite and utterly concrete. This is Gnosis, direct knowledge of one's true nature. You cannot grasp this experience with thought, fix it in memory, describe in words. It is too immediate for conceptual understanding, but it is absolutely reliable, more reliable than any knowledge received through senses or logical reasoning. In this state, all questions that tormented you for years dissolve, not because you find answers to them, but because one who asked them disappears. Only knowledge without knower remains. Understanding without one who understands. Being without one who exists. From time to time, consciousness seems to fall back into ordinary state. Thoughts return. Feeling of personality. Memory of external world. But something has changed forever. Now you know there is dimension of reality deeper than all phenomena. And this dimension is your true home. Gnosis cannot be called forth by effort of will. It comes as grace when mind is sufficiently calmed and heart sufficiently open. But one can create conditions for its arising. Regular meditation, study of sacred texts, communication with wise people, service to others. All this prepares soil for direct cognition. Different traditions describe Gnosis differently. Christian mystics speak of union with God, Buddhists of enlightenment, Sufis of fana, dissolution in divine, Advaitists of realization of non-duality. But behind all these words stands same experience of returning to Source. In Hermetic tradition, Gnosis is often described as resurrection, not physical resurrection, but awakening from sleep of identification with limited personality, death of false I, and birth of true. This frightens mind that clings to habitual sense of identity. But soul knows this death leads to true life. Gnostic experience has many degrees and shades. Sometimes it is brief glimpse lasting seconds. Sometimes deep immersion that can continue for hours. Sometimes constant background awareness that does not leave even during ordinary activity. But important is not quantity and not intensity of such experiences. Important is how they change life. True gnosis always leads to greater love, wisdom, compassion. Person becomes more whole, more present, more capable of helping others. If mystical experiences increase ego or separate from world, this is not gnosis, but spiritual illusion. Gnosis does not make person special or superior to others. On contrary, it shows that all beings have same true nature. Differences between people are at level of personality, character, life circumstances. But in depth, all are one. All are manifestations of same consciousness. This understanding brings deep peace. Need to prove something, compete, judge, disappears. Natural kindness appears that requires no effort. Life becomes service, not from duty, but from love. Because when you know unity of all existence, helping others becomes as natural as caring for own body. Leaving cave, you carry within yourself mystery. Mystery that cannot be told, but can be transmitted. Your presence becomes different, calmer, brighter, and this presence influences other people, awakening in them memory of their own true nature. Gnosis is not final goal of spiritual path. It is rather beginning of real life. Life in awareness of who you really are. And this life continues in each breath, in each step, in each act of love and understanding. Because gnosis is not state that can be achieved and lost. This is recognition of what always was and always will be your true nature. Sun sets behind mountains. Shadows lengthen. Somewhere below, in valley lights, kindle in houses. Life continues in its eternal rhythm. And you are part of this life. But now you know you are also that in which this life occurs. Source and manifestation, silence and sound, emptiness and fullness, all and nothing. This knowledge changed everything, changing nothing. World is same, but you are no longer who you were. And in this paradox is beauty and mystery of Gnosis. Time flows like river, carrying away whole civilizations. But some truths prove stronger than time. They pass from century to century, from country to country, from heart to heart. Hermetic wisdom is one such truth. Born in depths of antiquity, it continued to live and develop, taking new forms but preserving its essence. Imagine medieval monastery somewhere in mountains of Europe. High stone walls, narrow windows up which ivy creeps. Inscriptorium, workshop of scribes. Young monk bends over parchment. His hand unhurriedly draws letters, decorating them with intricate ornaments. He copies ancient text, one of Hermetic treatises that miraculously survived after fall of Alexandrian library. Monk does not simply copy words. He passes them through his heart, reflects on each phrase, discovers new facets in ancient wisdom. And to text are added his own comments, careful, modest, but filled with deep understanding. Thus, Hermetic tradition is enriched by Christian experience without losing its universality. In same monastery, in underground cell, another monk studies alchemy, but his retorts and flasks serve not only for chemical experiments. Each operation is prayer, each substance symbol of spiritual reality. He seeks not way to turn lead into gold, but path of transforming human soul, and finds it in same principles described by ancient Hermetic texts. Centuries pass. Renaissance epoch arrives. In Italy appear new centers of studying Hermeticism. In Florence, Cosimo Medici creates academy where they study Platonic philosophy and Hermetic texts. Marsilio Ficino translates Hermetic corpus into Latin, making it accessible to European scholars. In workshop of Florentine artist work proceeds on new painting. Artist inscribes secret symbols into religious subject. Hermetic signs understandable only to initiated. Virgin Mary holds infant, so her hands form sign of unity of opposites. In landscape, in background, trees are arranged according to astrological principles. Each detail has double meaning, superficial for ordinary viewers, and deep for those who know language of symbols. Renaissance of Hermeticism influences science. Paracelsus creates new medicine based on alchemical principles. Giordano Bruno develops cosmology, where man is microcosm reflecting infinite universe. Johannes Kepler seeks music of spheres in planetary motion. All draw inspiration from Hermetic sources. In 17th century, in Germany, appear Rosicrucians, mysterious brotherhood that announces itself through enigmatic manifestos. No one knows who they are and whether they really exist. But their ideas stir Europe. They speak of universal reformation of humanity, of uniting science and mysticism, of new golden age of wisdom. And at foundation of their teaching lie same Hermetic principles. Young student in Prague reads Rosicrucian manifestos by candlelight. His heart burns with desire to find these sages, join their work of transforming world. He does not know true. Rosicrucian brotherhood is not external organization, but inner state, state of soul that has found in itself rose of mystical love blooming on cross of material world. But searches are not in vain. Studying Hermetic texts, practicing alchemical meditations, reflecting on correspondences between macrocosm and microcosm, student finds what he sought. Not external teacher, but inner master. Not secret school, but his own soul as temple of wisdom. 18th century brings new challenges. Age of enlightenment with its cult of reason seems hostile to mystical traditions. But Hermeticism finds new forms of expression. In Masonic lodges, they study symbolic geometry and astrology. Johann Georg Hamann and Johann Gottfried Herder develop philosophy where feeling and intuition are no less important than logic. In Masonic Lodge, somewhere in England, initiation of new member takes place. candidate with blindfolded eyes passes through series of symbolic trials. They explain meaning of various symbols, square and compass, sun and moon, columns of Solomon's temple. But experienced Masons know this is not just ritual. This is enactment of inner path that each soul travels on way to enlightenment. 19th century becomes time of renewed interest in occultism. Eliphas, Levi in France, Anna Kingsford in England, Papus, and other researchers study Hermetic texts, reinterpret them in light of modern knowledge. New schools and orders arise that strive to revive ancient mysteries. In Paris, in small room, gathers circle of truth seekers. They study Kabbalah and astrology, practice meditation, and ritual magic. Each brought their experience. One studied yoga in India. Another became acquainted with Sufism in Turkey. Third researched shamanic traditions of America. And all find that at foundation of different traditions lie same principles, those same ones that millennia ago were recorded in Hermetic texts. End of 19th century brings new wave of interest in Hermeticism. Hermetic Order of Golden Dawn arises in England. Aleister Crowley creates his system of thelema. Rudolf Steiner develops anthroposophy. All these movements, with all their differences, draw from common source, from Hermetic tradition. In London, Temple of Golden Dawn ceremony of initiation into degree of lesser adept takes place. Candidate stands before altar decorated with symbols of 4 elements. Hierophant reads ancient formulas, calling forces of light to bless this transition to new level of understanding. And though words are new, their essence goes back to ancient Egyptian mysteries, to Gnostic rites, to medieval alchemical practices. 20th century brings new trials. 2 world wars, totalitarian regimes, materialistic ideology. All this seems to leave no place for mystical seeking. But Hermetic tradition survives even in these conditions, sometimes going underground, sometimes masquerading as scientific research, sometimes finding refuge in art and literature. Carl Gustav Jung, in his psychological laboratory in Zurich, studies medieval alchemical texts. He understands, behind strange symbols and mysterious procedures is hidden deep psychology. Alchemists described not transformation of metals, but transformation of human psyche. Their opus magnum is process of individuation, becoming whole personality. Jung introduces into scientific psychology concepts that for centuries existed in Hermetic tradition. Collective unconscious is what Hermeticists called world soul. Archetypes are Platonic ideas, primordial forms of things. Synchronicity is manifestation of principle of correspondences in modern life. Young psychologist, Jung's student, analyzes patient's dream. In dream appear strange symbols: serpent biting its tail, androgynous figure, tree with golden fruits. Psychologist recognizes in these images classical alchemical symbols. Patient's unconscious spontaneously reproduces archetypes that millennia ago were described in Hermetic texts. This work shows Hermetic symbolism has not become obsolete. It continues to live in depths of human psyche, manifesting in dreams, fantasies, creativity. And understanding this symbolism helps people better understand themselves, integrate different parts of their personality, find meaning in life. Crises. 60s bring new wave of interest in spirituality. Youth, disappointed by materialism and wars, seeks alternative paths of cognition. Interest in astrology, alchemy, ancient mystical traditions revives. Hermeticism finds new audience among hippies, artists, scientists seeking synthesis of science and mysticism. In small bookstore in San Francisco, gather lovers of esotericism. On shelves are new editions of ancient texts, modern interpretations of Hermetic philosophy, books about connection between quantum physics and mysticism. Buyers leaf through these books with same reverence with which medieval monks copied ancient manuscripts. Young woman buys translation of Emerald Tablet. At home, she reads ancient words. That which is below is like that which is above. And these words suddenly acquire living meaning for her. She understands her internal conflicts reflect conflicts in society. Her personal work on herself is part of general process of humanity's consciousness evolution. Thus, Hermetic wisdom continues its path through centuries and continents. Forms, languages, cultural contexts change, but essence remains unchanged. Man and cosmos are one. Matter and spirit are two aspects of one reality, and each person carries within themselves potential of divine. Today, Hermetic ideas can be found in most unexpected places. In holographic theory of universe that says each part contains information about whole. In ecological movement that sees Earth as living organism. In holistic medicine that treats not symptoms, but causes of diseases. In transpersonal psychology that studies spiritual aspects of human experience. Hermetic tradition does not belong to past. It lives in present and is directed toward future. In world where science opens new dimensions of reality and ancient wisdoms become again relevant. Hermeticism offers bridge between knowledge and understanding, between facts and meaning, between external exploration of world and inner journey to self. Today, we stand on threshold of new epoch when ancient wisdom can unite with modern science, when mystical experience can enrich rational cognition, when humanity can take next step in its evolution, and Hermetic tradition, carried through millennia, is ready to contribute to this great work. We live in amazing time when ancient truths acquire new sound, and modern discoveries confirm insights of past mystics. Hermetic wisdom, which for millennia lived in quiet of monastic cells and alchemical laboratories, today comes into world, offering its gifts to all seeking truth. Imagine modern metropolis. Glass skyscrapers reach toward clouds. Rivers of automobiles flow through streets. Millions of people hurry about their business. In this whirlpool of civilization, it seems there is no place for ancient mystical teachings. But this is only at first glance. Look more carefully, and you will see how Hermetic principles manifest in most unexpected forms. In research laboratory, quantum physicist studies behavior of elementary particles. His experiments show that observer influences observed, that consciousness and matter are connected by mysterious threads. Scientist does not know he is rediscovering what millennia ago was expressed by Hermetic principle of mentalism. All is mind. Universe is mental. In psychotherapist's office, client tells about their problems. Therapist listens not only to words, but to tone of voice, body posture, what remains unsaid. He understands external problems of client reflect internal conflicts. by changing attitude toward self, person will change their external circumstances. This is direct application of principle of correspondences. As within, so without. In city center, in small yoga studio, group of people practices meditation. They breathe in unison, and their individual consciousnesses gradually merge into unified field of awareness. Instructor explains principles of working with energy, chakras, subtle bodies. He uses modern terms, but speaks of same thing ancient Hermetic texts wrote about man as microcosm reflecting macrocosm. Young woman, programmer by profession, studies astrology in free time. Her colleagues laugh at this hobby, considering it prejudice. But she finds in astrology what is lacking in her technical work: understanding of cycles, rhythms, qualitative differences in time. She begins to plan important affairs according to lunar phases and is surprised how efficiency of her work improves. In art gallery, opens exhibition of contemporary art. One artist creates installations based on Hermetic symbols. Viewers see beautiful geometric forms and light effects. But for those who know language of symbols, works tell deep stories about nature of reality, about soul's path, about unity of all existence. Business trainer conducts seminar for executives of large companies. He speaks of synchronicity in business, of how intuition can complement rational analysis, of principles of ethical leadership. Seminar participants do not suspect they are studying adapted version of Hermetic philosophy applied to modern management. At university, philosophy professor lectures about consciousness. He tells about hard problem of consciousness, how subjective experience arises from material processes in brain. His students intensely ponder this riddle, not knowing solution was proposed millennia ago in Hermetic texts. Matter and consciousness are not separate, but are two aspects of unified reality. On internet, new communities of people interested in esotericism and self-development are created. Forums, blogs, online courses spread ancient knowledge in modern packaging. Young person from small town can study alchemical texts, communicate with like-minded people from different countries, participate in virtual meditations. On one such forum unfolds discussion about nature of time. Participants share experience of premonitions, prophetic dreams, strange coincidences. Gradually, they come to understanding that time is not linear, that past, present, and future are connected much more complexly than it seems. This is rediscovery of ancient knowledge about cyclical nature of time, that each moment contains all eternity. Holistic medicine. Doctor receives patient with chronic disease. He treats not only body, but emotions, thoughts, lifestyle. He understands illness is often message from soul, indication of imbalance in person's life. Healing happens when person not only takes medicine, but changes internally. This is application of Hermetic principle. Treat cause, not symptom. In Research Institute, group of scientists studies phenomenon of morphic fields, hypothetical structures that could explain how information is transmitted between organisms without physical contact. Their research echoes ancient ideas about world soul, about invisible connections between all living beings. Environmental activist organizes campaign to protect forests. He speaks of Earth as living organism, of interconnectedness of all ecosystems, of necessity to live in harmony with nature. His arguments are based on modern ecological science, but essentially repeat ancient Hermetic understanding of world as unified living whole. In technology, company engineer works on creating artificial intelligence. He reflects on nature of consciousness, on possibility of creating machine that will not just compute, but understand. His work leads him to questions that for centuries occupied philosophers and mystics. What is mind? How is it connected to matter? Is consciousness possible without biological substrate? Musician experiments with sounds, trying to create music that will affect listeners' consciousness. He studies influence of different frequencies on mental states, uses principles of sound therapy, creates compositions for meditation. Without knowing it, he revives ancient art of Theurgy, using sound for harmonization and healing. In large city opens Center of Integrative Human Development. Here they teach yoga and Tai Chi, astrology and numerology, art therapy and breathing practices. Center visitors are ordinary people of different professions and ages who seek something greater than material success. They want to understand meaning of their life, develop hidden abilities, find inner peace. Meditation instructor conducts class for beginners. He explains in simple words complex concepts. What is mindfulness? How to work with thoughts and emotions. How to find in oneself source of peace and wisdom. His students do not know they are studying adapted version of techniques that for millennia developed in Hermetic schools. At Publishing House, new book about quantum psychology is prepared for print. Author tries to unite achievements of modern physics with ancient knowledge about consciousness. He writes that reality is multi-dimensional, that observer and observed are inseparable, that consciousness can influence material processes. His work is attempt to create new synthesis of science and mysticism. Transpersonal psychologist works with client experiencing spiritual crisis. He helps person understand that strange experiences, visions, voices, feeling of unity with cosmos are not signs of mental disorder, but stages of spiritual development. He uses consciousness maps developed by modern researchers, but based on ancient ideas about stages of enlightenment. In alternative education, school children study not only traditional subjects, but basics of ecology, meditation, creative thinking. Teachers understand education should develop not only intellect, but emotional intelligence, intuition, ability for holistic perception of world. This is return to Hermetic ideal of education as development of all human potentials. Artist creates series of paintings inspired by his experience of altered states of consciousness. On canvases are strange landscapes, impossible geometries, beings from other dimensions. Viewers see in these works something familiar, though cannot explain what exactly. Artist visualizes archetypes of collective unconscious, same images that ancients saw in mystical visions. Director makes film about nature of reality. His heroes travel through various layers of consciousness, meet archetypal characters, undergo initiations. Viewers think they are watching science fiction, but actually see modern version of ancient mysteries, adapted for mass audience. In social networks, groups of people practicing distance meditations are created. Thousands of participants simultaneously concentrate on same images: peace, love, healing of planet. They rediscover power of collective intention, effect that was known to ancient mages and theurgists. Entrepreneur creates company based on principles of conscious business. He strives not only for profit, but for positive influence on society and ecology. His employees meditate before important negotiations, make decisions based not only on financial calculations, but intuitive understanding of choice correctness. Consciousness researcher conducts experiments with entheogens, substances that can cause mystical experiences. His goal is to study nature of consciousness, possibilities of healing traumas, paths of spiritual development. He works within strict scientific protocols, but investigates same states that ancients achieved through ascetic practices and rituals. Architect designs buildings based on principles of sacred geometry. He uses proportions that harmonize space, create feeling of peace and inspiration. His buildings are not just functional, but healing for those who are in them. This is revival of ancient art, of creating temples, places where architecture serves spiritual transformation. All these examples show Hermetic wisdom has not frozen in past. It lives, develops, adapts to new conditions. Principles discovered millennia ago find new forms of expression in science, art, medicine, education, business. We live in time of great synthesis, time when East meets West, antiquity with modernity, science with mysticism. And Hermetic tradition plays special role in this synthesis. It offers language understandable to both scientist and mystic, model of reality that includes both material and spiritual. Perhaps we stand on threshold of new epoch of human development, epoch when humanity integrates all best from its past and creates qualitatively new future, epoch when each person can realize their potential not only as biological being, but as spiritual being, connected with cosmic forces. In this new epoch, Hermetic wisdom can become bridge between different traditions and approaches. It is universal enough to unite people of different cultures and beliefs. It is practical enough to give concrete tools of development, and it is deep enough to satisfy most demanding seekers of truth. But most important, Hermetic tradition always emphasized personal responsibility of each person for their development. no one can be forced to wisdom. Each must walk their path, make their discoveries, pay their price for knowledge. And in this is guarantee that ancient wisdom will not turn into dogma, but remain living source of inspiration for new generations of seekers. After long journey through labyrinths of knowledge, comes time to return to simple, to what is accessible to every person here and now, without complex rituals and secret initiations. Hermetic wisdom ultimately is not set of exotic practices, but special quality of attention. Attention to what is always nearby, but often remains unnoticed. Imagine yourself in your ordinary morning. You wake up, and first thing that comes to consciousness is flow of thoughts about coming day. Plans, worries, memories of yesterday evening. Mind immediately turns on in habitual mode. Analysis, planning, anxiety. But there is another possibility. Possibility to begin day as Hermetic mystic. Instead of immediately jumping out of bed, stop. Feel your body, how it lies. What sensations live in it? Warmth of blanket, softness of pillow, light tension in muscles after night's sleep. These are not just physical sensations. These are messages from earth element in you. Element that connects you with planet, with its rhythms, with its maternal support. Now pay attention to breathing. No need to change it, just observe. Air enters lungs and exits in constant rhythm. Each inhalation connects you with Earth's atmosphere, with oxygen that plants released, with air element that carries aromas, sounds, weather changes. In breathing, meet your individual life and life of planet. This simple act of conscious breathing is already Hermetic practice. You experience principle of unity. Understand that boundaries between me and not me are conditional. Air that is now in your lungs was part of common atmosphere second ago. In minute, it will again dissolve in air that other people, animals, plants breathe. Get out of bed slowly, consciously. Feel how gravity attracts your body to earth, how muscles tense to support you in vertical position, how blood begins to circulate more actively, warming extremities. Your body is microcosm that reflects laws of macrocosm. In it act same forces that govern movement of planets and stars. approach window and look at sky. If morning is clear, you will see last stars that have not yet faded in rays of rising sun. If cloudy, observe play of light and shadow in clouds. In any weather, sky speaks language of symbols. Clarity is clarity of consciousness. Clouds are thoughts and emotions that come and go. Rain is purification. Wind is changes. Hermetic practice begins with such simple observation. You do not interpret what you see forcibly. Do not seek hidden meaning in every detail. You simply remain open to possibility that nature can communicate something to you in language older than words. During breakfast, continue practicing attentiveness. Feel taste of food, not only superficially, but deeply. In each piece of bread is present energy of sun that helped grain grow. In each sip of water is memory of rain, of mountain spring, of long journey through soil and stones. Food is transformed solar energy, and taking it, you participate in cosmic exchange of energies. On way to work or study, practice conscious movement. If you walk, feel rhythm of steps. Let each step be small. Meditation, contact of foot with earth, transfer of body weight, movement forward. If you ride in transport, observe people around. Do not evaluate, do not judge, just see. In each person is hidden same divine spark as in you. At workplace, Hermetic practice does not stop. Before beginning important task, make pause. Few deep breaths. Mentally connect with intention to do your work as well as possible, not only for personal benefit, but for good of all whom it may touch. This transforms ordinary activity into form of service. When difficulties arise, unpleasant conversation, technical problem, fatigue, use them as opportunities for practice. Instead of automatic reaction of irritation or despondency, stop and ask yourself, what can this situation teach me? Often, obstacles turn out to be disguised gifts, opportunities to develop patience, creativity, understanding. During lunch break, if possible, go out to nature, even if it is only city square with few trees. Sit under tree and simply be with it. Trees are masters of meditation. They know how to be motionless for hours, days, years, without being bored without worrying about future. Their roots go deep into earth. Crown reaches toward sky. They embody principle of correspondence, living bridge between earth and heaven. Evening, returning home. Practice transition from day consciousness to evening. Day is time of activity, planning, achievements. Evening is time of reflection, gratitude, preparation for rest. As sun sets beyond horizon, so your active energy can gently quiet, yielding place to quieter, contemplative states. Before sleep, conduct brief review of day, not for self-criticism or planning tomorrow, but for gratitude. For what can you be grateful today? For food that nourished you, for people who surrounded you, for air you breathed, for opportunities to learn and grow. Gratitude is one of most powerful Hermetic practices. It opens heart, harmonizes energies, attracts more of what you are grateful for. Lying in bed before falling asleep, return attention to breathing. Allow it to become slower and deeper. With each exhalation, release tensions of day, physical, emotional, mental. With each inhalation, accept peace that is always available in depth of your being. This is Hermetic practice for modern person. No complex rituals, no exotic techniques. Simply conscious life. Attention to what happens in each moment. Understanding that ordinary and sacred are not opposites, but different ways of seeing same reality. Gradually, such practice changes quality of life. You begin to notice synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that seem like messages from universe. Your intuition sharpens. You better feel people, situations, right choices. Your heart opens. You become more compassionate, understanding, patient. But most important, you begin to feel yourself part of something greater. Not isolated ego fighting with hostile world, but you'll embody of universe, wave in ocean of consciousness. This feeling brings one's deep peace that does not depend on external circumstances. Sometimes, during such practice, happen moments of special clarity. You may suddenly see beauty of sunset so vividly that breath stops, or feel such connection with another person that feeling of separation disappears, or experience moment of understanding when complex problem solves itself. These moments cannot be called forth by force, but one can create conditions for their arising. Conditions are constant practice of attentiveness, openness, gratitude. And then ordinary life becomes chain of small miracles. Each day brings new discoveries. Each meeting becomes opportunity for growth. Hermetic practice is not path from world, but path deeper into world, not renunciation of life, but fuller living of it. When you see sacred in every day, each moment becomes opportunity for union with divine. Kitchen becomes alchemical laboratory where you transform simple products into nourishment for body and soul. Workplace becomes temple where you serve common good. Home becomes sanctuary where you can rest and restore connection with yourself. And gradually you understand, Hermetic path does not lead somewhere far. It leads home. Home to your real self, to your true nature, to understanding of who you are beyond all roles and masks. Home to living connection with world, to feeling of unity with all existence, to wisdom that was with you always, but waited until you were ready to hear it. Our journey through Hermetic wisdom approaches end. We have traveled long path, from ancient libraries of Alexandria to modern metropolises, from hermits' caves to scientists' laboratories, from symbolic languages to simple practices of daily life. And now comes time for most important understanding. All this journey was journey home. Imagine yourself on mountaintop in pre-dawn hour. You climbed here long, through forests and gorges, on steep paths and slippery stones. Your feet are tired, breathing quickened, but here you finally are, on very peak from which opens view of whole world stretching below. From bird's eye view, whole traveled path looks different. Those turns of trail that seemed random form beautiful pattern. Those obstacles that made you suffer prove to be necessary stages of ascent. What seemed like mistakes and deviations was part of unified design that becomes visible only from this height of understanding. Sun rises above horizon, painting sky in golden and pink tones. In this light, everything around transforms. Valleys below, that in half light seemed dark and mysterious, prove to be green and fertile. Rivers sparkle like silver threads. Trees look like living mandalas, and roads like lines in great book of earth. This is result of Hermetic path. New vision. World remains same, but eyes with which you look at it have changed. What before seemed chaos now is seen as order of higher level. What seemed divided proves unified. What seemed material opens as spiritual in material form. You sit on smooth stone and close eyes. In silence of mountain peak, especially, clearly heard voice of inner wisdom. This voice was with you always. In childhood, when you wondered at butterflies' beauty. In youth, when you dreamed of great discoveries. In adulthood, when you sought meaning in daily affairs. But now you know how to listen to it. This voice speaks not in words, but in understanding. It reminds you were never separated from what you sought. Source of wisdom you tried to find in books and teachers was always within you. Divine toward which you strived through rituals and meditations never left you. Home to which you so long sought road proves to be where you are right now. Hermetic path is not path of gaining something new. It is path of removing veils from what was always nearby. As sculptor does not create statue, but frees it from stone, removing everything unnecessary. So spiritual path does not add anything external to you, but removes everything that prevents manifestation of your true nature. Illusions fall away one by one. Illusion of separation. You understand you are part of unified fabric of life. Illusion of lack. You realize abundance that was always around you. Illusion of fear. You see that in depth of your being lives unshakable peace. Illusion of death. You experience eternity that pulsates in each moment. But this does not mean you become some special being separated from ordinary people. On contrary, you become more human, compassionate to those who still wander in labyrinths of search, patient with those who make mistakes you too once made, wise in that simple sense that you know each walks their path at their pace, and no one can be hurried or forced. Your life changes, but not dramatically. You still get up in morning, go to work, communicate with people, solve daily problems. But all this happens from different place inside you, from place of peace, not anxiety, from place of love, not fear, from place of trust in life, not struggle with it. People begin to notice changes, not because you preach or teach, but because your presence has changed. You became calmer in difficult situations, kinder to those who irritate others, wiser in advice. You give not from desire to show superiority, but from sincere desire to help. Your understanding of Hermetic principles is now not theoretical, but living. Principle of mentalism you experience as awareness that your thoughts form your reality. Principle of correspondence as understanding that external world reflects internal. Principle of vibration as feeling of life's pulse in all existence. Alchemy stopped being mysterious science. It became process that constantly happens in your soul. Transformation of fears into wisdom, pain into compassion, ignorance into understanding. Each day brings new opportunities for this inner alchemy. Astrology is no longer prediction of fate, but language in which you read cosmic influences in your life. You feel planetary rhythms not as compulsion, but as music to which you can dance your unique dance. Symbols surround you everywhere, but now you know how to see them. In cloud patterns, in animal behavior, in random meetings, in dreams. World speaks with you in language you finally learned. Theurgy became your natural way of life. Each action is performed in consciousness of connection with higher forces, not from superstition, but from understanding that you are co-creator of reality, responsible for quality of energy you bring into world. And Gnosis stopped being unattainable goal. It became your constant background. Direct knowledge of who you are is present even in most ordinary moments. You can wash dishes and simultaneously abide in state of unity with being. This is returning home, not to geographical place, but to state of being. State in which you know yourself not as separate ego, but as manifestation of unified consciousness. Not as problem to be solved, but as mystery to be lived. Not as unfinished project, but as perfect expression of divine in human form. In this state, disappears spiritual thirst that so long drove you from place to place, from teacher to teacher, from book to book. Not because you stopped growing and learning, but because you understood. What you sought was never lost. Source is within. Path lies under feet. Goal is achieved in very striving toward it. Sun rises higher. Mountain peaks around are painted in golden light. Somewhere below, in valleys, people wake up. New day begins with its worries and joys, sorrows and hopes. And you are part of this common life. But now you know your place in it. You get up from stone and begin descent from mountain. Ahead is ordinary life, work, relationships, daily affairs. But you carry within yourself treasure that cannot be lost. Understanding that each moment is sacred, each being divine, each experience opportunity for love. Hermetic path has no end because it has no goal outside itself. This is not path to something, but path of being. Each step is already goal. Each breath already achievement. Each moment of awareness already enlightenment. And in this understanding is greatest mystery and greatest simplicity of Hermetic wisdom. It does not promise to make you someone else. It helps remember who you really are, not somewhere in future after long efforts and practices, but right now, in this moment, in this breath, in this heartbeat. Welcome home. You never left it. Our journey into world of Hermetic wisdom concludes, but your own journey is just beginning. May ancient wisdom become living part of your modern life. May each day bring new discoveries about yourself and world around. And may silence that lives in depth of your heart be your faithful companion on all roads of life. Good night, sweet dreams, until we meet in world of dreams, where all symbols are alive, all opposites united, and each soul remembers its way home.